All right, what's going on, Internet? So I built an AI automation that's processed roughly 200 expenses in the last month, saving me around 7 hours of time. I'm sure, like many of you, I have to do a lot of expenses. So when I do the expenses, I have to itemize receipts, put them in certain places, and track them both for reimbursement purposes and also taxes. So today, what I want to do is I want you to show you this automation, the flow, and the associated AI elements that I use to actually automate that entire process. So first, we'll start with a demo. What I want to show you here is the process associated. So I'm going to take two files, I'm going to drop them in this folder, and I'll wait about 30 seconds. We'll come back and I'll show you exactly what happened. All right, you'll see roughly 30 seconds later, we have two new file names for these files we've dropped. So we have the merchant name and the associated date for that merchant. And then if we go into our expense tracker, we can see we have all of the months and the tabs here. And each one of these tabs has itemized items. So we have the date associated to the purchase, the rationale or description as to why the purchase occurred, a category for it. So we have software, office supplies, other travel. We have the price, and then we have the receipt that we initially dropped and the associated photo that we linked to that from here. And this is all automatically updated in real time. So all I need to do is simply drop a file in here, either from my phone or my computer. So I can take a photo, drop it in the folder, and all that automatically processes for me. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through the flow and exactly how this operates. And as always, we're going to use slides. So this is the flow rate we'll kind of start with. So we have our source of where the data comes from. So it's either coming from a phone, like I said, or a computer. And we can drop all types of file types. So it can be PDFs, it can be all different variations of images. And once we drop this into a specific folder, and it can really be any subfolder under our parent, because we have a parent folder, and then below that we have a series of subfolders. So I can drop it into any of these, and then it's going to be picked up. And the reason it's going to be picked up is because we have a watcher. This watcher here is always watching this specific parent folder and what's added to it below. And once we add anything, the next step is we're going to extract that. So we're going to pull it out. We're going to run it through Gemini Flash 2.0. I was historically using OpenAI, but I wanted to try this new model out for this specific automation. And I found that Gemini Flash 2.0 is quite good actually when it comes to extracting out even convoluted characters, bad lighting, etc. So when we pull it out, we're going to pull this out. We're going to put it into a JSON file. And the reason we're putting it into a JSON file is we're going to have to process this for future parts of the automation. And JSON just tends to be a structure that's easily parsable when you're using applications. And the data we extract out is going to be a few things. So we're going to pull out the date, the amount that was associated to the purchase, the merchant name, the reason for the purchase, and then the category associated. So the two things here that are interesting is that the reason, it's not explicit in the receipt, right? So it doesn't say, I came here for this reason. But we can utilize AI to actually kind of deduce what this receipt was for based off of the type of purchase, if it's a coffee, the time associated to it, the merchant name, the location, etc. It's not always going to be correct, but it gets you close enough so you can then go in there and make slight edits if you need to. And then also we have the category, so I can then just provide the categories to the AI, and the AI can then choose the category associated that's, I guess, best closest to that merchant or that associated purchase. So it'll categorize it that way. So once we've done that, we've extracted it, then we're going to do the next step, which is we're going to change the file name. So you saw that in the Google Drive, the file name changed because oftentimes when you put in files from your phone or your computer, it's just going to be some random image underscore whatever number. We want it to be relevant and related to the thing that we're doing. So we can actually have that be updated. So we can change it to the merchant name, and we can then update the date associated as well. Once we've done that, we're going to push everything to Google Sheets that I've shown you previously. And in Google Sheets, we have those different columns that matter and the associated data inside of it. So we're going to first have the date, not data, but date. And then we're going to have the reason associated category amount and then the receipt link, which then goes back to our Google Drive so you can see the image associated. So that's the overall flow here. And the next what I want to do is I want to show you a few things. So oftentimes I get questions from people in the comments of what's your starting point? So what's the initial prompt that you use to then create this application in such an effective and efficient way? Before I get to that, I want to share you some lessons learned. So when working through this process, these are some things that I had to remind myself of, and I would like to remind you of as well when you're building applications with AI. So the first one here, we'll start with one, is start fresh conversations. So in Cursor, you have the composer mode with agent. You want to add new conversation as frequently as possible. So the best thing to do is after you've built each micro feature, you start a new conversation to then build the next micro feature. Reason being is the context window tends to extend and lengthen over time. And the Claude, specifically 3.5 Sonnet, if you're using that model, which most people do, it tends to degrade over time. So its ability to effectively build applications gets worse as time goes along, at least from my experience. So it's best to start fresh conversations as much as possible. Next is you should always reference API docs as frequently as possible if you're building something that's relevant for that. In this situation, Google Sheets, I had some issues with Google Sheets when it came to inserting data and being authenticated correctly. So if I just referred to Google Sheets, I started a new conversation, I solved that issue. It was no longer a recurring issue for me. And then the third one here, and this is probably one of the most important, so I'll put a little star here, is that you should actually discuss the root cause of an issue first. So if you hit a problem and you keep on running to the problem over and over and over, you should then take a step back, because oftentimes these AIs, they want to solve the problem immediately. They just want to suggest fixes. Just like sometimes my wife tells to me, I want to help her all the time, but sometimes we just need to listen. We just got to listen. And in this situation, we want to listen. And we want to actually ask the AI, I want you to assess the entire code base and the upstream potential causes of this recurring error that we're running into. And I want us to discuss the potential root cause and suggest no fixes. So that's kind of the prompt I get it. And then I'll iterate back and forth maybe 3 times. And I'll ask, okay, you think this is the root cause, but is it really the root cause? And it keeps looking. And it keeps looking. And eventually, it kind of diverts or diverges to a point where it's like this is the common most root cause, and this is the thing I'm most confident in, and we'll then fix that. And based off of that, I found that this works pretty well, especially if I hit a recurring error that happens over and over and over. So you just need to take a step back, stop trying to fix everything, and really just get to the root cause and assess the issue. But you didn't think you'd get some philosophical stuff in this video. Okay, all right, so we got that out of the way. Next, I want to show you the prompt I put in here. So this is the initial prompt I started. This is something I typed out. I then sent to another model to write a PRD for me. So the model that I used, I'm pretty sure in this iteration was Mini O3 Mini or O3 Mini High, one of those. So some form of reasoning model. And when I did this, I actually I asked for a PRD, and you might ask, what is a PRD? So a PRD, simply put, is a specification that we're going to send to an engineer to build off of. It stands for, I think it's Product Requirements Document. And with that, it's a roadmap for the engineer to follow to say, okay, I want to build this part, and then this part, and then this part, and kind of iterate over time. And when I prompt the model, when I kind of pull this together, I first have the task. So I say, this is the task we're trying to achieve. Below that, then I give it some kind of background and context of saying, I want you to create a PRD. But importantly, I want you to write this PRD as if you're giving it to a noob engineer, somebody that's never built anything before. And you need to guide them as much as possible and give them as much context as possible so they can successfully build this without too many hiccups. So once we've done that, we then give the structure of the PRD to our initial prompt. We say, okay, we want an overview. That's going to be 3 to 5 sentences. And then below that, we're going to say, okay, in this PRD, we're going to have micro steps, and we're going to have phases inside of those micro steps inside of the phases. And then this is all going to be in a markdown file so people can check off these micro steps. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, I've talked about this at length. But a quick TLDR is we have a phase. Below that, we have a micro step 1, micro step 2, 3, and then we have phase 2. So this is phase 1. And then we keep doing this over and over and over and over. And the reason we do this is because each one of these micro steps, they have little check boxes. And they have these check boxes inside of the markdown file because when I'm working with the AI, oftentimes there's an issue with the AI getting lost in the weeds, like we humans sometimes do. Where we have 2 things here. So we have the macro and then we have the micro. And the AI, what we want to do is we want to effectively get the AI to go back and forth between the macro and the micro without getting lost in the micro, because that happens quite often. And the PRD with the checklist helps us avoid that issue. Because if we have the PRD, which is the macro, so the PRD equals macro, then the micro is going to say, okay, we're going to build this micro step out. Once you're finished and you've successfully tested this, we're going to check that off. We're going to update our PRD with that check mark, and then we're going to move back into micro step 2. And we can do this, and we can kind of control and orchestrate the AI in an effective way to steer it in the way we want it to go. I hope that was kind of a useful TLDR, a divergent. And the next thing here is, okay, we're going to test. So we're going to say, okay, in each one of these phases, in each one of these micro steps, we should do test-driven development, meaning that we're going to have to write unit tests before we actually write the function itself. And this is actually something I've realized that turns into a form of reinforcement learning. It's not like a proper reinforcement learning, but it's like a kind of reinforcement learning where we have RL here and we have our test and then we have the function that we're trying to build. And when we build this function, we're actually going to first say, okay, I want you to build a test first. So you're going to do this first. And once you've built the test, this test should pass if you've built the function that we expect you to build. So you do the test first, then you do the function. And what's going to happen is it might run the function and it errors out because it ran the function associated to the test. And if the test doesn't pass, the test is actually going to give our AI a bunch of information that's relevant for it to then fix the function so it works as we expect it to. So we have a reinforcing kind of feedback loop into itself because we run the test, it fails, it gives the errors back into the function, they build a new function and feeds it back into itself. So we're iterating over and over and over. And this is something I found is actually really useful for getting AI to kind of avoid all those errors. And then last, we're going to say, okay, this is basically hedging my bets here. So if I've missed anything, feel free to add anything that I've missed. That's the point on this last piece. Once we've done that, we're going to walk through the flow and say, okay, this is a rough idea of what I think the app should function as. If I miss anything, feel free to add it, but this is kind of what I think it should look like. So I'm going to walk through and say, okay, you need to extract data. When you extract the data from the receipts, you're going to use this specific model. This is important because oftentimes the AIs that we're using inside of Cursor and other places, their memory is cut off. So they're only trained up to a certain point. So we need to ensure if we're using fresh models and fresh APIs, we're calling out those specific versions and saying, this is the version you have to use. Don't use anything that's older than this. So we want to be specific with that. Next, we're going to say, okay, you're going to categorize the receipts. I then give it the specific categories here. So we have those listed out. I then below that say you need to make sure that the output from this receipt when you've extracted the data should be in a JSON format. Then we give it a naming structure. So I want you to rename the file that I've uploaded to Google Drive. It's going to be merchant name in this associated date format. After that, we'll have the structure associated to Google Drive. So I actually say this is how the folder structure looks. So at the very top, we have the parent of expense. Below that, we have 2025, and below that, we have the associated month, and then year. And then I give it examples of what that looks like. So it's Jan 2025, Feb 2025, etc. And then next, we'll talk about the Google Sheets. So if I want to insert this into Google Sheets, I'm then going to say, okay, if you're going to insert it, I want to give it details about Google Sheets itself. So how is it structured? What does it look like? First things first is the sheet itself is called 2025 expenses. I want to make that clear. Next, I'm going to say, okay, inside of the sheet, we have associated tabs, and each one of those tabs are named in a specific way. And they're named month and then year. And then I give examples like I did previously. Jan, and then I specify underscore 2025, Feb underscore 2025, etc. I then say, okay, inside of the tab, you have specific columns. Those columns are labeled as this. And inside of those columns, this is the exact structure I expect you to put inside each one of those columns. So I'm trying to be as specific as possible in this initial prompt. So when it builds the PRD, it knows to include all of the specificity for the future engineer that's going to build this for us. And then last, I say, okay, I want this specific application to run continuously forever, basically, on my machine. So I'm not going to run it remotely. I'm going to run it locally. Now, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to tell it I'm using a modern Mac. And on a modern Mac, to do a cron job-like thing, you need to use a functionality called plist, or it's also called launchd and launchctl. You can use any of those terms. The AI figures out what that is, and then it'll kind of deduce it for you. And if you don't know the name of that, it's fine. You can just say, hey, I want this to run continuously. This is the type of Mac I'm using. Figure out how to do that, and it'll figure it out. So this is the initial prompt that I put into the AI. And then you might ask, okay, what came out of that? Well, if I go over here, you can see this is the finalized PRD that I got from the reasoning AI. I made some slight tweaks, but not many. And you can see at the very top, we said, okay, we have the overview that I mentioned earlier, and we have the phases and micro steps. So we have phase one, which is our initial setup, and we have the micro steps associated. You can see we have the check marks here, and you can see they're checked off, and they have the green check here saying that this has been completed. And then we go to phase two, the same check boxes, phase three associated. And you can see the structure is the same. So it just breaks it out into phases, has the micro steps, and we do that so we can, like I said, go to micro to macro and back and forth. At the end, we have additional considerations, and this is just some additional stuff that the AI added. And I think we did, when I built this out, we added some more logging and error handling, the documentation, and then some basic security. But that was kind of just like a nice to have, but not necessary. With all that being said, internet, I hope you found this useful, educational, insightful, entertaining, all that stuff. If you liked it, like and subscribe, reshare with your friends. And if you would like to work with me, I have a link in the description below. It's a 15-minute free discovery call where we can see if there's a good fit between the two of us. Specifically, I have a consultancy that helps people automate their internal processes with AI. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. And if not, I will see you next time, Internet.